But ask yourself for just a moment, how would I answer this question? If somebody came up to me and asked me this question, what would I say? Well, what's the question? The person comes and said, Lord, will those who are saved be few? Have you ever wondered about that? You know, I watch these polls and how people answer them and everything, and it seems like on any ethical issue or any theological issue, those who are giving a sound biblical response to the poll are always in a very small minority, usually under 10%. And you wonder when you hear these things, how can so many people be so desperately wrong? And what in the world and what out of the world will happen to these people? Will a majority of people who have ever lived on this planet go to heaven? Or will it be just a remnant? Will the majority of people who are alive today go to heaven? Or will they go to hell? If you go to funeral services of your friends or acquaintances who die, the only answer you can give to that question is obviously an overwhelming number of people who are now in this earth or recently departing from it will certainly go to heaven. Hell must be reserved for people like Hitler and Stalin, Idi Amin, and those guilty of the worst kinds of atrocities against humanity. But when you go to funerals, you know, I've never been to a funeral where the minister said, our poor departed brother is roasting right now in hell. Have you ever heard that? No, I mean, our supreme doctrine of justification in America is not justification by faith or even justification by works, but justification by death. All you have to do to go to heaven is to die, because obviously the overwhelming number of people, so broad and wide is the mercy and great grace of God, that almost everybody gets to heaven. Isn't that right, Jesus? Or is it a minority? A small minority? A few?
Matthew chapter 7, verse 13, Jesus said, enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. For the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who find it. Beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Grapes are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor figs from thistles, are they? So every good tree bears good fruit, but every bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot produce bad fruit, nor can a bad tree produce good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then you will know them by their fruits. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and acts upon them may be compared to a wise man who builds his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house, and yet it did not fall, for it had been founded upon the rock. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, and the floods came, and winds blew and slammed against the house, and it fell, and great its fall. I stand here today. I'm not troubled in my heart about your self-esteem. I'm not troubled in my heart about whether or not you feel good about yourself, whether or not life is turning out like you want it to turn out, or whether or not your checkbook is balanced. There's only one thing that gave me a sleepless night. There's only one thing that troubled me all throughout the morning, and that is this. Within 100 years, a great majority of people in this building will possibly be in hell. And many who even profess Jesus Christ as Lord will spend an eternity in hell. You say, Pastor, how can you say such a thing? I can say such a thing because I don't do my Christian work in America. I spend most of my time preaching in South America, in Africa, and Eastern Europe. And I want you to know that when you take a look at American Christianity, it is based more upon a godless culture than it is upon the Word of God. And so many people are deceived, and so many youth are deceived, and so many adults are deceived into believing that because they prayed a prayer one time in their life, they're going to heaven. And then when they look around at others who profess to know Christ and see those people also just as worldly as the world, and they compare themselves by themselves, nothing troubles their heart. They think, well, I'm the same as most in my youth group. I watch things I shouldn't watch on television and laugh about the very things that God hates. I wear clothing that is sensual